What's up, gamers? Summer's over. That means you get another devlog. Although it's still very beautiful out, so summer's not over in my heart. But it's over on the calendar, which means it's time to work on the game. Red. Anyways, welcome to the game. What's happened since the last devlog 2.5 months ago? Lots of stuff. And I had to write it all down because I forgot. So let's get into it. Okay. So, I got a little game going here. You may notice some things like the tanks now have like a little team color underneath them. Buildings also have a team color underneath them. So I'm team blue, team red's up there. So this is really nice. It just helps you have better visibility to the enemies. And ATU helps you keep track of which buildings are yours, which tanks are yours. Although it looks like the color for the factory isn't poking through. Also, you'll notice some models have changed. I found some models online. I'm kind of like trying to find free models that are for public license. Find models that I like and kind of are cohesive. So I don't think we're entirely there, but it's been fun messing around with that. So you'll notice my tank is different. I also have a spawn menu for tanks. Also, all the menus are radial menus now instead of boring old buttons that are kind of in the shape of a circle. Now they're actual proper radial menus where you don't have to click on the button, you just have to have a right angle. So let's say I want to be the let's be the destroyer tank.
Destroyed. Respawning soon.
Alright, so here I'm it's destroyer tank, which is pretty red at the moment, but it's a big beefy boy, lots of health, very slow, but does a lot of damage with its dual cannons that actually fire left-right, which is cool. Every tank also has its own ability now, a unique ability. Hit R to use that. So for this tank, looks like I'm gonna have to use it. It increases my rate of fire for like 10 seconds once I trigger it, but it causes some self-damage, so I'll turn it on now. So you'll see I shoot very fast. Able to clear out some of the bad guy army pretty easily with that.
Spawning.
So I just respawned as another tank. So here's a little rocket tank. Cute little guy, shoots little rockets. But his special ability is actually very powerful. It shoots like a rocket barrage. So let's just go ahead and fire that off. So you'll see those just go across the map and do a lot of damage, which is fun. So, and here's another tank. You know, basically all the tanks just have their own speed, health, armor, weapon, and main ability. And you can switch between tanks at any point during the game. You just respawn with a short delay. So here's the sniper tank. Long range weapon. It does a lot of damage, can one-shot most tanks except the bigger, heavier tanks here. But A and D don't do anything. You can only go forwards and backwards, and it just reverses to where it's pointed. So it controls a little differently, that's fun. Its special ability is an overcharge shot, which definitely one-shots about anything, but leaves you disabled for a few seconds. But you can see now I can just like kind of hang out here behind the battle and just pick off tanks with a sniper. Although I don't really want to get into the battle because I don't have much health. Like if I go in here, I'll start, well, see if there's any bad guys. Yeah, just come on in here, I'll get destroyed by this rocket turret pretty quick.
Command tank destroyed.
Yeah.
Respawning soon.
You'll see I added a new AI tank. Kind of looks like an Abrams. Looks a lot like an Abrams. It's a heavier tank, or a medium tank in the game, so it has more health. Takes longer to build though and costs more energy. But anyway, so now whenever you go to a factory, it's so weird to control this thing. When you go to a factory, you have 5 different types of tanks to choose from. You can also sell buildings now,
Factory lost.
which is new. Gives you half your resources back.
Outside build radius. Building.
So, you know, if you place a structure somewhere you don't like, it's not the end of the world. You can fix that. You'll also see all of my... okay, those guys are making letters that are too big. But outposts and reactors and factories will indicate their power consumption / their production of command points and energy. So right now, both of these outposts are producing 47 energy or 47 command points whenever they show that. So you'll probably notice now I placed a couple more outposts, and now they're all producing less. They're only producing 41.
Building.
If I place another one, they're gonna start producing even less. So now 38. So it's kind of like an anti-snowballing feature where, you know, the more outposts you have, the better. But it's not like a linearly scaling set of resources. Like they each produce a few less resources as you gain more. And that's just to try and prevent snowballing from getting too far ahead. Another way I've kind of gave the person who's behind an advantage is, let's say I come up here and die. I'm going to take a while to respawn. They can kill me.
Command tank destroyed.
Ah, I've died.
Respawning
And
soon.
you'll notice it's taking me a while to respawn. I'm still stuck here, and that's because the more outposts you have on the map, the longer it will take for you to respawn now. And vice versa. So like if you're far behind and you're getting attacked and you don't have much infrastructure, you'll be able to respawn quicker compared to your opponent who would have more infrastructure. So let's go ahead and leave the match. This takes us to the main menu, so I have a little bit nicer of a main menu now, a little bit more presentable, but I also have a few maps. So that was Valley Oasis, kind of the one you've seen before, but changed a little bit. I can also create a new map, or a match on a new map. And you'll see I can't actually start the game until I have an opponent. So if we go on our other client here, we can find the session and join it, and then that'll actually start the game.
Enemy detected.
Okay, yeah, so
Game
now
begin.
we're both in, we can both play. This map's pretty much just a reskin of the other one for the most part, except snow, which is fun.
Building.
And I think I also have it like closer at night, so there's less
Building
light out.
complete.
So like these emissive light sources contribute more. And we can also go on to the island. Oh, on the main menu I just have like random abilities and shit going on in the background just to make it kind of dynamic, which is kind of fun. So there should be a missile shooting off from here in like a few seconds. Maybe, maybe, maybe. There it goes. Yeah, you get the point. So next we have the island map, which should show up whenever I look for a session here. It should show the name of the map that's being played, yeah, islands. Oh, but it didn't like that. Interesting. I don't know why it didn't like that. Let's try again. Okay, it likes it that time.
Game begin.
So this map's a little bit smaller. You know, you can get to the enemy really quick. There's not as many control points on the map. Pretty flat. You know, just a few little volcanoes or islands in the background. So yeah, you get it.
Building.
It's the game still, just different maps. Now there's really nothing stopping me from making this more than just 2-player. It could easily be 4-player, really the only, or 3, or free for all, I suppose. Really the only thing I'd have to figure out is like how to choose which enemy to target, you know, because right now they just go towards the other enemy's headquarters. But speaking of, something I haven't mentioned is I have like a rally point kind of mechanic now to give you like influence over your tanks. So if I spawn in some allied tanks here, and by default they're all just going to go towards the enemy headquarters. But I can place down little rally point beacons, which will affect all of my friendly tanks within like a little radius around the beacon, and they'll move towards it. So like if I want to rally my forces to the right over here, I can place some rally point beacons, and they'll just go towards it for like 4 or 5 seconds, and then they'll continue just on towards the enemy base. So it's not like you have to like micromanage your army, but like if you want them to group up or retreat from a certain position, this rally point mechanic gives you some influence over them after they've been produced, which is not something that existed before. Go ahead and spawn in some bad guys and they'll fight it out. So like I can command my forces over to the left, and they'll still fire and stuff while they're moving, because the targeting is separate from the moving. Now I can tell them to go forward.
Outpost lost.
No.
Headquarters
So that's
under attack.
I'm excited for that. I think it'll open up a new kind of layer of strategy in commanding your army and tactics and stuff, because it was kind of silly that you could never really do anything. Your army would just go towards the bad guy, even if you like set a path, you know, like, oh, I want my tanks to
Building complete.
follow this route. You know, they'll do that,
Building complete.
but before you couldn't influence them to do anything else. So like this guy will follow that kind of curve I set. But if I use a rally point, it'll ignore that curve from now on, and it'll just go towards the enemy base. So once a unit's been rallied, it'll just kind of default back to the you know, head straight for the enemy base kind of thing. And the enemy tank will have this white circle around them, and so will you whenever you're in tactical view, so you can just see where you are. And I've also put a health bar on top of your own tank and the enemy tank, which is nice. Although that's not always working, so I'll need to double check what's going on with that. I've also added a lot of performance optimizations. A lot of like just checking boxes, see if it improves performance, or unchecking boxes and seeing what that does. You know, I had a lot of features turned on that you don't need turned on, a lot of overlap checks that don't need overlap checks. All of that stuff's kind of expensive, so performance has improved a lot. I've also integrated projectile pooling. Before, I would just, anytime like a tank fired a shell, it would just it'd send a request to the server to create that shell, and the server would create it, and then it would replicate that across the client, and then whenever the shell hit something, it would be destroyed and thrown in the garbage, and then the next time you shot a new one, it would have to be created. So instead of that, I just like reuse projectiles now for a lot of the tanks. You know, if you shoot a bullet, it'll create it the first time, and then after that, instead of destroying it, it'll just, you know, disable it essentially and stow it away for later. You know, next time it needs to fire a bullet, it'll just reference the already created one instead of going throughout all the hassle of making a brand new one. That had a big performance improvement, especially for large tank battles with a bunch of AI tanks and stuff. I was able to play with a friend who has a significantly more powerful computer than I do, and he was getting well over 100 FPS in like a pretty large match we were having with lots of tanks and stuff. I wasn't getting quite as good of performance, but my computer's also just literally trying to die. So I'll count that as a success. Yeah, that's most of it. I definitely skipped over a lot of the boring stuff, skipped over a lot of the bug fixing, but I'm really honestly pretty happy with the where this game's at. I mean, I'm thinking I'll be able to actually register it on Steam soon, and be able to put out some beta builds for testing, which is pretty exciting. It's a pretty big milestone. Just putting the polish on some things, like maybe having a more cohesive user interface design. As like I said, I was finding some 3D models to incorporate and spending some time just trying to put together models that seem cohesive enough and kind of have like a unified design would be ideal before throwing it out there. But yeah, more stuff to come for sure. But summer's still here, so I might be riding bikes still, but we'll try and have a good balance. Talk to you next time, gamers.